Hey everybody, it is Chris, and I want to do a build video today for a build I call the Searing Blade. This is a build that I made a few months ago using the new 2024 rules and the 2024 Player's Handbook. And I'm going to be presenting a few different builds in my next few videos, unless I get distracted by something in between. And in my next video, I actually want to talk about a character that I have made for myself, but that character actually has some context based on a character that I made for someone else. So I'm in a campaign right now, and you can see up on your screen, it is called Call from the Deep. This is the image the DM shared with us, and we were told that we would be going starting at level 1, and we'd be going till level 13 in this campaign. And in this campaign, our characters have a ship, and we are the officers on that ship. And so as we were planning characters, we were deciding which positions each of us would have on the ship. And one of my friends decided he was going to play the captain of the ship. He might have been nominated to play the captain of the ship. So he will be the party leader, and he has been the party leader. We've been playing this campaign for a while now. We're at level 5 now. And based on this image, we kind of knew that, I mean, you can kind of intuit one of the monsters you might come across in this campaign, and we already have. We're level 5, and we've already been mind blasted more than once. Yeah, so mind flayers are involved. I assume they're, our RDM does some adjustments on this stuff to make it a little tougher. So we've already had enhanced mind flayers that have been attacking us at level 5. And so I wanted to make a character that was appropriate for this campaign, and I wanted to make a character for my friend that was appropriate to the role he was going to be assuming, as well as be effective in this campaign. And this is where I came up with this idea. Now, normally when I do build videos, what I will do is I attempt to make the build as universal as possible. So that is, we're not looking at a specific campaign. We're just looking at, in general, this build should be good. In general, I think this build will be good too, but there were considerations I did make for the campaign, and I'm going to discuss those because there are some things that I might have worked a little differently if we didn't have the context that we did for making characters. So like I said, my friend actually asked for some help in coming up with the character build, and so this is the build I made for him, and it is called the Searing Blade, and he is playing it. And this is how the character works. So the description of this character is: the Searing Blade is 7 feet tall, muscular, a brilliant gold with golden full plate armor. The essence of flame seems to dance around him, and his face is fierce and majestic, displaying an obvious nobility. Truly, this is obviously the greatest champion of all Dragonborn. So the idea was I wanted the character to kind of present like a golden Dragonborn paladin. So the golden full plate armor, super majestic. He's big, he's strong, he has a lot of presence. He's going to be the leader of the party, the natural leader. And I decided on Gold Dragon, Dragonborn, not because it's necessarily the only species option that works, but I just figured it was really thematically appropriate. If you are going to be a Dragonborn and you want the most majestic version, I mean, if you're talking about the metallic Dragonborn, the Golden Dragon, or the Gold Dragon, is the top of the heap. So, Golden Dragonborn, although they're no more powerful than the other colors of Dragonborn, made sense thematically. Okay, so I did change the image here. This is the image from the Player's Handbook for the Dragonborn. The actual image that I sent to Sig would not be appropriate for a monetized video because it probably belongs to somebody. Okay, so basics. The background, noble. +2 strength, +1 charisma, and the skilled origin feat. Now, I will mention that in this campaign, we are required to use the backgrounds as they're presented in the Player's Handbook, which means you select your background, it tells you which ability scores you're going to get, it tells you what skill proficiencies you're going to get, and it tells you what origin feat you're going to get. Skilled isn't my favorite origin feat. I don't think it's terrible, but it's definitely nowhere near my favorite. I would like something like Alert on this character. But once in a while, you have to make a decision that, are you going to go with concept or are you going to go with mechanics? And in this case, I went with concept. I figured this character needs to be a noble. He is a noble dragonborn. And the background proficiencies he gets are history, persuasion, and a gaming set. History and persuasion, I think, are just fine for this character. And class proficiencies, I suggested intimidation and athletics. This is going to be a strength forward character, so athletics makes a lot of sense. It's the only skill that's strength based. And intimidation makes a lot of sense because he is a 7-foot gold dragon, dragonborn, surrounded by the essence of flames. That's pretty intimidating. And then skilled feat proficiencies, I recommended insight, religion, and perception. And the reason I suggested these is because when I plan characters for actual campaigns, not for build videos, I often share what my build is going to be looking like with the other players, and they share with me, and we'll do things like we'll do lists of skills and go, okay, so and so has this skill, so and so has this skill, so and so has this skill. Nobody has religion yet, and so this allowed me to fill in some blanks. So that's these skills might be different if you made this character, but for us, these filled in blanks in the party. And then we have our equipment and species, of course, Dragonborn Gold, which gives fire resistance, gives the breath weapon, gives dark vision, and it gives flight at level 5, and that is a bonus action and lasts 10 minutes once per long rest. And these are the ability scores. We got Strength 17, Dexterity 10, Constitution 14, Intelligence 8, Wisdom 8, Charisma 16. This is going to be a strength forward character, meaning we are going to concentrate on raising strength. You can make this character concentrating on charisma, and there's actually some significant advantages to doing it that way. However, there were campaign considerations that made me decide that strength was the right way to go for this particular character. One way or the other, you're probably going to want a decent strength and charisma with this character build. So here is what the advancement looks like. We're going to start with Paladin. So at level 1, this is a Dragonborn Gold Paladin. Feat skilled, and then what happens is at level 2 we're going to multi-class into Warlock, and we're going to follow Warlock all the way up until we get to level 13 or 12 levels in Warlock, and it will be the Celestial Patron. And conceptually the way this works is we have our character. They are this mighty, beautiful champion with this future that is just obviously going to be grand. And they are a paladin, incredibly good, incredibly noble, and they are recognized by, presumably, like the Celestials of Bahamut, right? And Bahamut recognizes this is a special Dragonborn and brings them on with their patronage, and therefore we're going to have Celestial Patron. Now, probably not Bahamut himself because he's a god, but, some celestial servant of Bahamut. All right, and we will also get some feats. We're going to get Great Weapon Master, and that's going to get us to Strength 18, and that we're going to take that at level 5. And we're going to take Mage Slayer, and that's going to get us to Strength 19 at level 9. And this is the reason I went with Strength. I want Great Weapon Master and Mage Slayer on this character, and if I went Charisma forward, I just don't think I could fit them both. There's just not enough feats, right? So once you take Great Weapon Master and Mage Slayer, I think you got to go Strength forward. And so I've also suggested Heavy Armor Master at level 13. That'll get our Strength up to 20. Doesn't have to be Heavy Armor Master. When we get to that point, it might make more sense to pick up Speedy or Charger or who knows what, right? But Heavy Armor Master is kind of the early place filler, I suppose, that's going to get us to Strength 20 at level 13. Now, what this does mean is that because we're not getting up to a Strength of 20 by level 8, our advancement in terms of our chance to hit and the damage we do is a little bit slower than a lot of my builds. And that is because we have put a greater defensive element into this character. Mage Slayer is a defensive feat. Yes, you get disadvantage on concentration saves when someone with Mage Slayer attacks you and does damage. But Mage Slayer is mainly about every short or long rest. You can automatically make a mental save that you failed. If you remember the front cover that I showed you of the campaign, and you think about what ability scores this character has and what ability scores they will be proficient in for saving throws, you might see why Mage Slayer is important. So I think Mage Slayer is just not something we can give up on the build. And it might be something we could build or give up on a different build in a different campaign, though I gotta tell you, I'm getting to the point where I want Mage Slayer on every character I make. It's so good. So good. Anyway, that's our advancement. And then I gave him some, advice level by level as to how the character is going to work. So here's level 1. We got starting equipment. I said upgrade to heavier armor when possible because he's going to start with chainmail. And I said ideally plate eventually. And I think currently we both have, in this campaign, we both have splint at level 5. So we don't have plate yet, but we're hoping to get it in the next few levels. And then for spells, it's going to have 2 prepared with Paladin and 2 first level slots. And I suggest Searing, Smite, and Cure Wounds. And I said later on he could switch for a ritual because eventually he's going to get Cure Wounds automatically through Celestial Patron. So I suggested maybe picking up a ritual because he's not going to have a lot of extra spell slots. And I said maybe Purify Food and Drink just because it's a ritual nobody else is going to have. Once again, I'm considering what other people would have in the party. Not that I think Purify Food and Drink is all that great a ritual. But now, and he's going to have Lay on Hands for 5 points. But now I want to talk about the spell. So the spell this character is going to be built around is Searing Smite. So here is Searing Smite. It's a level 1 evocation spell available to Paladins. Casting time is a bonus action, which you take immediately after hitting a target with a melee weapon or unarmed strike. Range is self, verbal component, duration 1 minute, no concentration. As you hit the target, it takes an additional d6 fire damage from the attack, and at the start of each of its turns until the spell ends, the target takes a d6 fire damage and then makes a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the spell continues. On a successful save, the spell ends. So the mechanics here are important. You hit the creature on your turn, presumably, and they take a d6 fire damage. Then, at the start of their turn, they take an additional d6 fire damage before their first saving throw. So they've already taken the damage twice before they get their first save. So when we look at using higher level spell slots, all the damage increases by a d6 for each spell slot level above 1. That means we're doing 2d6 damage, but as soon as we upcast this to second level, we're doing 4d6 damage, guaranteed, and potentially 6d6, 8d6, whatever, but guaranteed 4d6. And then if we upcast it again, guaranteed 6d6. So what happens is, if we cast this as a first level spell, it actually does less damage than a Divine Smite unless we get the damage to continue. So unless they fail a Constitution saving throw, it will do less damage than Divine Smite. Starting at second level, this does more damage than Divine Smite, and just a little bit more. But then at third level, it does a fair bit more. And fourth level, even more. So this is just a really, really effective spell for upcasting. And what I noticed with Searing Smite is the way they take the damage. So guaranteed damage twice, but not on the same turn. And this is what we're going to take advantage of. So this is the Celestial Patron subclass for Warlock. We see there's celestial spells. This character will eventually get all of them. And there's some good spells on here. We have Aid, that's a good spell. Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Lesser Restoration, Light, Sacred Flame, Daylight, Revivify can be very good. Guardian of Faith, Wall of Fires is a good spell. Greater Restoration can come in handy. Summon Celestial is a good spell. Not a bad list at all. And these are all automatically prepared. Then we have at level 3, Healing Light. You gain the ability to channel celestial energy and heal wounds. You have a pool of d6s to fuel this healing. The number of dice in the pool equals 1 plus your warlock level. As a bonus action, you can heal yourself or one creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself, expending dice from the pool. The maximum number of dice you can expend at once equals your charisma modifier, minimum 1 die. Roll the dice you expend and restore a number of hit points equal to the roll's total. Your pool regains all expended dice when you finish a long rest. Now, if this character was to just stick with Paladin, their lay on hands would scale by 5 points per level, which is actually more healing than Healing Light gives you, a little bit more. But the advantage of Healing Light is, well, I guess first off, we continue the giving up of the scaling of lay on hands doesn't hurt so much because we're getting Healing Light instead. And we do have an advantage over lay on hands in that with lay on hands, that's touch. With this, we have a 60-foot range, and both of them are a bonus action. So this character will continue to be a fairly effective healer, even though they didn't continue with Paladin. But level 6 is the feature that we are waiting for. And so it says, your link to your patron allows you to serve as a conduit for radiant energy. You have resistance to radiant damage. That isn't all that useful. If it is a monster that is resistant to radiant damage, that's very useful because PCs do radiant damage all the time. But monsters don't do radiant damage all that often. So this isn't a particularly valuable resistance, but it's all about this next part. Once per turn, when you cast a spell that deals radiant or fire damage. Whoops, I misread that, and I need to correct it. So what I said was once per turn when you cast a spell that deals radiant or fire damage, and that's not what it reads. It reads once per turn when a spell you cast deals radiant or fire damage. So this is triggered by when the damage occurs, not by when you cast a spell. And that makes a big difference here. So I just wanted to jump in and make that correction. You can add your charisma modifier to that spell's damage against one of the spell's targets. So when we cast Searing Smite, it deals fire damage right away. We can add our charisma modifier. And then it says once per turn when a spell you cast deals fire damage. So when we get to the enemy's turn and they take an additional d6 damage, we can apply our charisma modifier a second time. And if they fail that constitution saving throw, so they take a third instance of damage or a fourth instance of damage, we're adding our charisma modifier over and over and over again. That's really, really good. That's a really nice synergy. And this is one reason why you might want to consider making this a charisma forward character. So you could go charisma forward, take Pact of the Blade, make your attacks with charisma, and then when you do Searing Smite, you will do more damage with Searing Smite because of Radiant Soul. So that is why you might want to go charisma. In addition to, you'll probably have other warlock spells that would benefit from a higher charisma. This character is going to have a charisma of 16. That's still plus 3 that we're adding over and over again. So it's still good. This is still really good synergy. And then level 10, Celestial Resilience. You gain temporary hit points whenever you use your Magical Cunning feature or finish a short or long rest. These temporary hit points equal your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. That's pretty good. That means at the end of this campaign, this character will be 13th level plus 3 Charisma. That's 16 temporary hit points. Not bad. Additionally, choose up to 5 creatures you can see who gain the points. Those creatures each gain temporary hit points equal to half your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. So at the end of the campaign, that would be, sorry, I said this guy would get 16. It's 15 because they only have 12 levels of Warlock. And then for allies, it would be 6 levels of Warlock plus 3, so 9 temporary hit points. Still, pretty good feature. So I said for level 1, I said use your spells for Searing Smite or Cure Wounds. Doesn't matter yet. In combat, hit with your glaive for graze unless enemies are beside each other, then a halberd for cleave, throw a javelin if you need to. And I say to take weapon masteries, halberd and glaive. So halberd has cleave, which means if they have somebody within 5 feet of the enemy you're attacking, you can attack them too. You don't get to add your ability score modifier to the damage. Nevertheless, it's another attack against an enemy, so it's good. Glaive with graze. Graze says that if you miss, you do your ability score damage to the target. So we're attacking with strength, so eventually 5 points of damage to the target, even if we miss. So glaive is the right weapon to use if the enemy's by themselves. Halberd is the right weapon to use if an enemy is beside another enemy. And whether we have halberd or glaive, we're going to have 10-foot reach as well, which is nice for this character. We actually have a couple melee characters beyond this character in the group, so the reach actually allows this character to stand behind them and make attacks, which is very useful. Then at level 2, we go into Warlock, and we're going to start with some pack spells. I suggested Armor of Agathis and Hex, and I suggested Eldritch Blast and Minor Illusion for cantrips, and I suggested Eldritch Mind as an invocation. And I said, at this level, you have 3 slots. 1 is a pack slot, 2 are paladin slots. And I would use one of them for Hex. You have nothing to do with your bonus action except lay on hands, so it's just the d6 damage on every attack, and Eldritch Mind will help you maintain concentration. Cure wounds if you need, otherwise maybe a Searing Smite to do some extra damage when you need. Level 3, we'll take our second level of Warlock, and I suggested adding Comprehend Languages, and I said use your slots on the spells you already have. Invocations, Fiendish Vigor, which is a good hit point boost at low levels, or a temporary hit point boost. And eventually this character will be generating temporary hit points when they get to 10th level in Warlock. That's a long way away. At these early levels, I like Fiendish Vigor. It makes a significant difference on your durability. And then I said to take Pact of the Blade. I said you need this eventually because if you want extra attacks with your weapons and you are a Warlock, you must have Pact of the Blade. You must be using your Pact weapon. So we absolutely have to take Pact of the Blade at some point. Figure we might as well take it at level 2. I said keep using strength with attacks, but now you have reliable damage because Pact of the Blade allows you to change your damage types. You can switch between the glaive and the halberd. So if we're attacking an enemy, and let's say they had been alone, so we had been using our glaive, but now they've got an enemy up beside them and we want to use our halberd. Well, the nice thing about Pact of the Blade is now it is a bonus action. So we can have our glaive that is our Pact of the Blade, we can stow it, then we can draw our halberd as part of our attack, and as a bonus action, we can turn it into our Pact weapon and then attack with it. So we can switch between those weapons and still use Pact of the Blade. Then at level 4, we're going to be Warlock level 3. The Pact spells we're going to get are Misty Step, Aid, Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Lesser Restoration, Light, and Sacred Flame. I said time to switch out the Cure Wounds we have through Paladin since we just got it through Warlock. And our Healing Light, we're going to get that for 46 at level 4, and it's going to be a d6 per Warlock level. And our level 4 plan, I said your Pact slots are second level. Time to try a second level Searing Smite. You'll see how nicely it upcasts. 46 guaranteed, maybe more. With Lay on Hands and Healing Light, you're a fairly decent healer as well. Do not use your Pact slots on the Hex spell, but Paladin slots on Hex is fine. Then we get to level 5, we're now Warlock 4. We're adding the True Strike cantrip. I said use this spell at this level, but not after this level. It will give you another d6 damage. Now the downside is we have to use our charisma, and at this point our strength is going to be going to 18. Nevertheless, it is still a tiny damage increase at level 5. And then I suggest Mirror Image as a Pact spell. Great Weapon Master for our feet, strength to 18. And we now get our Dragonborn Flight, so 10 minutes of flight per long rest. And I said, level 5 plan. This level sucks. And yeah, we're going to see that. This level sucks for this particular build. It's just one of those cases where you have one level that stands out that isn't very good. Because you don't have extra attack yet. And using True Strike means working off a +3 charisma instead of a +4 strength. At least Great Weapon Master is giving you another +3 damage. Things get better at level 6. And as it happens, we are playing level 5 right now in this campaign. Sorry, Sig, but I promise you it gets better at our next level. Level 6, we're now Warlock 5. I suggest Thirsting Blade for extra attack, obviously. Right? That's obviously the first one we're going to take. I also suggest Gaze of Two Minds, which is very good. I suggest switching Fiendish Vigor for Pact of the Chain to get a cool Sphinx kitty, but that's just a suggestion. New spells, we're going to have Daylight, Revivify, and Counterspell. And the level 6 plan. I said times are better. You are attacking twice, and you can upcast Searing Smite to 3 for 66 guaranteed damage. Fiendish Vigor goes as it doesn't scale, but she might consider something like Armor of Agathis now for some temporary hit points if you need. And then at level 7, we're going to get the subclass feature I talked about. So we're now Warlock 6. We're going to pick up Hypnotic Pattern. And I said probably should switch out Hex. In fact, I probably wouldn't use Hex past Tier 1. And I'm going to go over some damage numbers later. And I didn't. I used it from levels 2 through 4. And that was it. Subclass feature, Radiant Soul. Level 7 plan, the villages came together. You get Radiant Damage Resistance, And once per turn, when you cast a spell that deals radiant or fire damage, you can add your charisma modifier to the damage. So, when you cast Searing Smite, they take 3d6 plus 3 fire damage now, another 3d6 plus 3 at the start of their turn, and if they fail their save, another 3d6 plus 3 at the start of their next turn, etc. All for one spell slot, no concentration. This is your power move. Say something about the Holy Justice of Bahamut or something when you cast it. And this is another nice thing about being Warlock multiclass here, is we're automatically upcasting Searing Smite, which is what we absolutely want to do. If you want the most Searing Smites you can get at high level, then Warlock is a good choice. And then I have here level 8 plus. So I just said one kind of blurb for everything from level 8 through level 13. I said, keep upcasting Searing Smite with pack slots. Get Devouring Blade for a third attack at Warlock level 12. Combines really nicely with Great Weapon Master, which scales on its own at levels 9 and 13. Your damage should be good with high Nova potential. You can take Eldritch Smite if you like. You will have the invocations. It does add some reliability in damage types, but I would consider Lessons of the First Ones for Lucky and Alert personally. And I said, get Life Drinker at 10. And this is where I need to talk about damage reliability. So I see the cover of our campaign and I think, Mind Flayer's fire should work fine. However, fire doesn't work fine on everything. Fire damage is not super reliable, and this character is built around it. If we're going to use the Searing Smite strategy, it does fire damage, and there's not much we can do about that. Meaning that we're not going to be using the strategy against something that is resistant or immune to fire. At that point, might as well just do a regular smite. So, yeah, I do think I should mention that there is that limitation of this character, is that we are relying on using fire damage for a lot of our damage. And as I go over the damage numbers, I'll show you how much of the damage this character does is from Searing Smite. It's quite a bit. So just keep that in mind with this character. I don't like to, deceive or misrepresent when we build our build and we center around a particular damage type and we don't have flexibility, even though our main weapon can switch damage types. That does create a limitation. And that's why I suggested to him that he might want to take Eldritch Smite, because that does give him another option in a case where everything is resistant or immune to fire. So we're going to look at the damage numbers now, and I'm going to go through this pretty quick. So if you want to see the math, you can see it. I'm going to show it up on screen, but you'll need to pause your screen. But just to quickly go over, I've just done DPR calculations for this build. I didn't do it when I made the build because I was reasonably confident it would do reasonably well. I did some like quick and dirty stuff just to give myself an idea how it would do. But now I'm going to give you like the full DPR, the full damage calculations. So the first thing is this character, I'm going to be assuming we're using our pack slots for Searing Smite. And they're recovered on a short rest. That means if we have 2 pack slots, we get 2 for a short rest, and then I assume 1 short rest. So then 2 more. So that's 4. And then I assume 4 combats, 4 rounds per combat, and then Magical Cunning, which Warlocks get now, gives 1 additional pack slot per long rest, and 2 additional pack slots at level 12 plus. Level 11 in Warlock, but level 12 for this character because we did Paladin. Then damage calculations are for Glaive, so I'm including Graze Mastery, not Cleave Mastery. Searing Smite, I have to make an assumption about the Constitution save. So I said there's a 50% chance that they'll take 1 extra instance of damage. If we're doing a Searing Smite that does 2d6 damage, they'll do 2d6 when it first hits, 2d6 at the start of their turn, and 50% chance of 2d6 more or 1d6. So they would do 5d6 total. So when you see the damage calculations, that should explain that. 60% base chance to hit. This character will not have a 60% chance to hit throughout the whole thing because we didn't concentrate fully on our strength. We didn't increase our strength to 20 until level 13. So there will be certain levels where this character is at 55% chance to hit, and that's why. And then I wanted to look at math and see if the breath weapon was ever worth it to replace an attack once we get extra attack, because you can replace 1 attack with the breath weapon. Now, if you can hit multiple creatures, it's probably worth it to do it all the time. But I wanted to see if it was worth it, even if we could only hit 1 creature. So I'll share that math as well. And then Great Weapon Master, I assume only a bonus action attack on a crit. It also gives you a bonus action attack if you drop an enemy, but that's hard to guess how often that's going to happen. And I do use the Hex spell on this character at levels 2, 3, and 4. And otherwise, this character does not concentrate on any spells. I mean, this character will have Mystic Arcanum eventually, a 6th level spell. They could take some like Summon Fiend or something. I didn't make any assumptions for that at all. So this character is not concentrating at any levels other than 2, 3, and 4. If we look at our damage numbers here, we got level on the left, features in the middle, and the calculations on the right. And I will mention that I'm only going to level 13 with this character because that's as far as I built it for. And that's kind of when it peaks. This character does really well in the last couple levels of this campaign. And so I'm just going to kind of work my way down here. I don't want to spend a lot of time looking at any of this stuff, but you'll see how many smites we're doing in the middle column, and then the damages on the right. We see Searing Smite does 5.5 points of damage by level 4, and that's 5.5 damage per round over a 16-round day. And then we will continue on. I looked at the breath weapon, and I figured the breath weapon will do about 8.3 points of damage to a single target at level 6. Well, our weapon attacks do 9.4, meaning breath weapon against one target is probably not worth it at level 6. But if we can hit multiple targets, it probably is. And moving onwards, level 7 is when we get our combination of our subclass feature working with Searing Smite. And Searing Smite's now adding over 10 points of damage around on a 30 damage around total. So that's a third of our damage is coming from Searing Smite by level 7. And I think that even gets higher as we go up, even in percentage wise. And yeah, so level 12, we're going to get a third pack slot at level 12. And so now our Searing Smites add 25.6 damage on 49 points of damage. So like half our damage is just Searing Smite. And then at level 13, it just really comes together. So we've got the additional Searing Smites because our pack slot's scaled at 12. And our Magical Cunning scaled as well. So we're adding 2 more for Magical Cunning. So that is a total of 8 Smites. And then our Strength just got to 5, plus 5. Our Great Weapon Master just got to plus 5. Our Graze just increased to 5 points of damage. We just got our 5th breath weapon, and breath weapons, I should mention, I didn't pause there. At level 11, they actually do more damage even to a single target because of the scaling to 3d10. And we get our Invocation Devouring Blade that gives us 3 base attacks. So that is a lot of stuff coming online right at the end. And you will see this, I'm going to be graphing this. But here are the damage calculations, and we end up at 65.5 points of damage. And overall, how does this compare to the baseline? It is 31% over the baseline. But let's look at it on a graph, and this should really show how this character will progress throughout the campaign. So the red line is the Searing Blade, the blue line is the baseline, and the Searing Blade outdamages the baseline. And the baseline, by the way, is a Warlock using Blade Pact and a Great Sword and Eldritch Smite with their pack slots. So in a lot of ways, it's similar. Great Weapon Master, Thirsting Blade, Devouring Blade, Life Drinker. We're just doing Eldritch Smites instead of Searing Smites and using the combination. And no Paladin dip at level 1. And we can see that, the Searing Blade outdamages the baseline from levels 1 through 4, more so at level 4 than at level 1. And then level 5 sucks. Level 5, we're below baseline. So this is where Sig is right now in our campaign, 16.1 average damage versus a baseline of 21.1. But look what happens at level 6. Look at the dramatic increase. We go from 16.1 to 27.8 in one level. And this suddenly puts us around 6 points of damage over the baseline, and it increases with level. So it's 6 points here, it's 7 points here, it's 8 points here. It just keeps going up. There's a little bit of a narrowing at 9, but then we can see what happens at levels 12 and 13. and at 13th level, 65.5, and the baseline is only 38.5. And the baseline is supposed to be okay damage, so this is really exceptional damage. And this is, we could increase these numbers. If we don't take Mage Slayer and we take a damage increasing feat, that would increase these numbers. If we switched from using Glaive and Halberd to using a Great Sword and Great Axe, that would increase these numbers. Because, you know, we're only doing the D10 damage when we could be doing 2D6 or even a D12. So we are making sacrifices that do less damage, but we're getting things for them. We're getting reach. And I didn't take Polar Master with this character, you might notice. That's because our bonus action is going to be used all the time. We got Searing Smites we're doing eventually 8 times a day. And in addition, we have our Dragonborn flight. That requires a bonus action. If we switch our weapons, Pact of the Blade requires a bonus action. Bonus actions are going to be used up. But I will mention that the 65.5 at level 13, that is higher by a little bit, not by much, but higher than the baseline at level 20, including the epic feat. That's how much damage this is doing at 13. And I really like this when I'm making for a campaign and I know what level we're ending at, is I like to finish strong. You know, I want to finish the campaign feeling as good about my character as I can. Sig's going to feel great about this character at level 13 because so many things come online. And just look at level 12 and 13, how much it increases. We go from 39.7 to 49.3 to 65.5 in 2 levels. So there's just this huge increase at the end. And we have been doing good for a long time before that. Only level 5 really is not very good for this character. And it's good for other things too. This character has healing. This character has decent defense. You know, Mage Slayer is a really nice defensive feat as well. So we have done lots of things to expand what this character can do. But in terms of damage, 31% over baseline is pretty good for a character that's not 100% focused on damage. So that is the Searing Blade. I hope you really enjoyed it. And like I said, this is made for a specific campaign, but if you wanted to make this for a general campaign and make it more universal, just ignore what I said about skills. Pick the skills that work for your campaign. Ignore what I said about any spell that isn't Searing Smite. Pick the spells you want for your campaign. And then this really should work in any campaign. Just note that this character really does peak at level 13. And before I sign off, I want to thank some patrons who allow me to make this content. If you would be willing to be a patron of this channel, check the video description. But today I want to thank these Archmage level patrons: Shura, Astonish, Awesome Face, BG4711, Brandon Sargent, Christophe, Condor, Cinnamon, Dash Panther, David Lotz, David W. Skibbins, Eric H., Grizzly Badger, Homowa, Hunter, Ido, Isaac Leister, James Thomas, Jean-Baptiste Blanchette, Jeremy Brown, Jonathan Lexi, Justice Valdez, K.J. Aurelio, Kevin Casey, Nuts, Crosidian, Quath, Logan Dotson, Matt Schwobel, Migish, Reichenstahl, Rysquai, Starfall, Stephen Edmondson, TUM, The Algor Rhythm, Tim Loy Moeller, and Trex. Thanks so much for your support. Thanks to all my patrons. And until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.